It's 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday.
Oh, God.
Sat in front of the ring light, just screaming. They're not even fucked yet. I wrote it for 2 hours.
Hi, welcome back to the Horny Book Club.
Hi.
I'm Alice.
I'm Ellen.
And this week we're talking about It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey.
Before we begin, please follow us everywhere. Follow us on Instagram at the H Book Club. Subscribe to us on YouTube, HBC Podcast. Follow us on TikTok at HBC Podcast. Send us emails, hornybookclub@gmail.com. No one has sent us an email yet.
Guys,
but one day
someone will send us an email.
Someone will send us an email and I will read it and I will say thank you.
And I'll reply.
Another one.
I'll reply.
Thank you.
I'll reply. Out of office.
And yeah, you can give us money on Ko-fi if you want to. Again, nobody has yet, but we live in hope.
Enjoy the app.
It's an iconic one. It's a Tessa Bailey, so ultimately it's completely unhinged.
Yeah.
It started out really good.
Yeah.
Really loads of great points, especially from Alice. Loads of great points. And then turned into me screaming.
So buckle up, baby.
Buckle up. I was thinking about this earlier. This will be the fourth Tessa Bailey book that we have an individual episode about. 5 if you include the deleted Tools of Engagement.
4. Wreck the Halls, Window Shopping, Fangirl Down, and this, yeah. And we did Tools of Engagement. This has been coming a long time.
For as long as we've had the podcast, yeah.
And for as long as we've read this. The first time we read this, we were like, we've got to do it for the podcast.
Yeah.
We read this in 2021.
2021.
And there we go. Here we are. And do you know what? I'm thrilled to be here.
I really, really, really thought it was going to be bad.
I cannot express to you the anxiety I had before reading it of being like, I'm going to ruin it for myself. I'm going to ruin the memories I have, because the Tessa Baileys we've been reading of recent, and by recent I mean the last 2 years, have been, you know, if you've listened to the pod, you know, not our faves. We've had a lot to say about them. And I was like, there's no way this one can be good. There's no way this one can also be good.
Because we kept massively hyping this up.
Yeah.
All the time we were like, well, it's not Have One Summer. It's not Have One Summer. And I was like, there's no possible way it can be that good.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be, because, yeah, we're reading these Tessa Bailey. I almost said Taylor Swift.
We're reading these Taylor Swift books.
These Tessa Bailey books. And they're not good. In fact, they're bad. And you're just like, there's no way she could have, as you said, gotten so much worse. But
yeah.
She has, because this book is great.
This book is fucking great. Guys, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I'm saying this. But this is why we're always like, whenever we read a Tessa Bailey book as well, and we finish it, and we're like, yeah, but I am going to read the next one she does.
Because you never know.
You never know when you're going to get an It Happened One Summer. And I stand by it that I still will read the majority of things she comes out with.
We're going to read the Au Pair Affair. We're going to do an episode on it.
I'm already upset.
We've basically already talked about it because of the amount of scenes with those two characters in.
But I'm like, okay, no, right. I've got a great point about that. But I feel like we must do the synopsis first.
First, tell me what you rated it.
I rated it 4 stars.
I rated it 3.75. I was like, you know what? That's the same rating as like all the Windy Sea books, basically. Yeah. So I was like, that's my level. That's kind of what I rated all the Chestnut Springs books.
That's what you rate your good romances. I rated it 4 stars, which is less than what I originally rated it.
Yes,
the first time I read it, I rated it 4.5. And when I saw your rating of 3.75, I was like, what a bitch. I was like, how dare she, blah, blah, blah. And then I literally like turned the page and I was at the smut and I was like, oh yeah, there she is. There's
because
Tessa.
You are like, you shake my hand. Great point.
Thank you.
Like, for the everything else, you're like, this is lovely. The relationship between them is built up so well. Their backstories are both really interesting. It's not too overdone. It's not too like blown over. It's all this stuff, and then you get to smut and you're like, oh, hi hello,
good to see you, Tessa. Missed you, wondered where you were. I wondered where you were hiding, Tessa.
Although some of it fit, and I have to say, for the Tessa Bailey books we've read recently, I have not been like, ooh, some of this is fit. Fangirl Down, none of it was crazy. I like fit. I was all of it. I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
But some of this, you're like, whew.
yeah. I've got a bold statement, is that I think if this book didn't have any smut in it, for me, it would be a 5 stars. I cannot express to you.
That is a bold statement.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know. I cannot express to you how much I was like, like giggling my feet. I was so excited. I was giggling my feet, kicking my feet and giggling because I was so giddy about all of their build up, all of their backstory. And part of it was obviously because I've read it before, so I knew what was coming. So when Brendan, we first see Brendan, the love interest, I was like, there he is, it's my boy, he's back. Like, I was buzzing. But like, I love this book. I love them so much. I love the characters. And even though some of the smut is crazy, like just some of the words she uses, I'm like, babe, come on. Like, it works with their characters. You know how like in some other romance books and in some other Tessa books, like Wreck the Halls, I think in particular, we were like, when you get to the smut, it's like a different character. You're like, who are these people? Yeah. Where have you come from? Even though some of the wording that Tessa uses in these smut scenes is grim, the build up to it, the acts that they're doing, and kind of a lot of what they're saying, it still feels like the same characters. Mm-hmm. There was at no point was I like, there's Beat, because in all of the other books I'm like, Beat, yeah, I know, thank God. Let's go back to those times where the character of Beat.
I missed the days. I didn't know about Beat.
I missed those days.
None of us knew about Beat. She hadn't thought him up yet.
Yeah. So I just think this book is a dream. I love it so much.
It's great. It's really like, it takes you back to the days. I felt when I was reading...
Okay, Grandma.
When I was reading this, I felt that feeling of when I first was reading Mile High, and you're like...
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, it took me back as well to the period of when I read this for the first time, weirdly. Within that year, we were reading this, Chloe Brown, The Love Hypothesis, like... We were.
I know. It just made me laugh. Because I'm like, looking back on Love Hypothesis, I'm like, oh shit, dear. Yeah. And like, Kiss Quotient.
Classic.
As crap as it is, yeah, you're still like...
It was just good, like a good time. Like it just makes me think of that when I was first reading romance books.
When you first discover romance books and you're like...
And everything's like new and not the same as each other. You're not kind of on the formulas yet, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think this one still stands that test of like being quite unique and being like not... It is obviously formulaic, but not in a way that it feels familiar or repetitive.
It's the OG. I mean, well, actually, the OG is Red, White, Royal Blue, obviously. Yeah. I'd love to hear a synopsis of this book, please.
So we are following Piper Bellinger. She is incredibly rich. She's an Instagram celeb, and she is just famous for being famous. She's the definition of famous for being famous. And she spends all of her stepdad's money all the time, basically, blah, 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 because her biological father passed away when she was like 3 or 4, and her mum left the town he was from, never came back, moved to LA, met Piper's stepdad. He became a billionaire. She is now a socialite, blah, blah, blah. She gets broken up with at a really big Hollywood party, and because she feels really bad about herself and is like, that can't be in the tabloids, I have to control the narrative, I'm going to throw a massive party instead on a hotel rooftop. They get in the pool, the party gets out of control, she gets arrested, the party gets shut down, and her stepdad is like, this is a step too far, Piper. Actually, the hotel owner is funding my next movie. So, and he's really pissed off, and he's a man with roots as well. So, he wants there to be consequences for you. To give her those consequences, he sends her and her sister Hannah to Westport, which is the town where their father was from and their mother, and where their parents met. Is like, there's a bar there that your dad owned, so we still own it. I'm sending you there for 3 months. You've got to prove to me, basically, that you can do it on your own, like do life on your own, and that you have learnt the value of money, you understand there are consequences to your actions, blah, blah, blah. So Hannah and Piper go to Westport. When they get there, it is like this tiny, tiny fisherman town. I love it. I want to be there. And when they're there, they meet grumpy sea captain Brendan Taggart, otherwise known as the love of my life.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise known as the second sexiest type of man in a romance.
After Xaden.
After Xaden Risen.
He is incredibly grumpy, and he is really like, these girls won't last a fucking minute, and they are polar opposite of each other. Over time, obviously, they fall in love, they shag, But Piper is like learning about the value of money. Her and her sister do up the bar. Piper kind of makes real friends, has real relationships, reconnects with her dad and the town and where she's from. And her and Brendan fall in love. But then there's always kind of the overhang of like, well, I'm going back to LA to be a socialite. But actually, you know,
she's not going back
she's
to LA.
not going back to LA. There's a miscommunication. They get back together. They end up in Westport. That about covers it.
That was really good.
Yeah. Brendan's got a dead wife because, of course.
Yeah.
Desiree. Desiree. She died 7 years ago. He feels really like bad about the fact that she died because he was on the ship when she died. She had an aneurysm and died, and he was like, there was nothing I can do because of that, and because he feels like he wasn't a very good husband to her because they just both kind of did their routines and like weren't really super in love. They just kind of fell into this relationship. Is that he feels this real responsibility then to be a good son-in-law and to kind of be a good husband to her after she's died.
Yeah.
So he wears his wedding ring for the whole time.
Yeah.
So, and he's not had sex in 7 years, and it's this big like thing when he takes off his ring and gets with Piper.
Her dad is mean to Piper.
Yeah, classic. Mick, classic.
There's just some stuff that Brendan does in this book that you are just like, what were we talking about when we were like, obviously it's heightened, but it's still really good. Oh, funny story. So it's kind of like that in the sense that you're like, he seems like a fairly realistic guy, and some of the stuff he does, you're like, if someone did that for me in real life, it would be crazy. And it's not like stuff where you're like, no one would ever do that. That's really romantic, but no one would ever do that. It's just small stuff that you're like, like just when he goes off on the boat and he leaves a note on the hardware store for someone to come and put padding on the bottom of her bunk bed so she doesn't hit her head anymore. It's not just like he came and he did that himself. It's like he was like, I've got to go on the boat, but this problem needs to be solved, so here I am solving it.
It's so nice to see a man who comes to his own realizations but also then has other people call him out, and he doesn't get on the defensive. He respects them and he changes his behavior, and he really, really cares about Piper and Hannah, which is just really nice. And like what my point was earlier, circling back, that Tessa Bailey does really, really well in this book showing not telling. So she's not that's telling you. So Piper is described, it's fucking brutal. The scene where Piper gets broken up with, this guy is telling her about ending it, and she's basically trying to be like, oh yeah, we'll like call it mutual. Like, is it because I brought you up to my therapist doesn't mean I think you're serious? Like, she's trying to kind of play it off. He's like, I've dated some airheads, Piper, but you put them all to shame. And then, why are you forcing me to be an arsehole? There's just nothing to you, okay? There are thousands of Piper Bellingers in this city. You're just a way to pass the time, and your time has passed. And I was like, brutal. I was like, that's hot. You're just a way to pass the time, and your time has passed. Horrific. Yeah. And then the next line, it was a miracle Piper kept her winning smile intact as Adrian sailed away. I was like, first of all, just love that. But sailed away, and where's she about to go? To a sailing town? Crazy. Your opening scene is painting Piper in this light of being vapid and of being like an LA kind of socialite. But then the whole way through the book, then there are so many bits where Hannah will say to people, my sister's the nicest girl around, like my sister cares about, like loves me, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like in some of her other books, that's all you get. You're told like Melody's a really sweet girl, and that's all you get. Then there's no kind of like proof of it really. But this whole book is just full of Piper kind of shifting the original view you have of her. She does so many nice things, and they don't feel forced, and they feel very genuine to her character and really like natural that she does them, but it doesn't feel like it's a different character either. So like one of my favorite scenes, sorry, I'm very aware I've just spoken for about 5 minutes straight. One of my favorite scenes is when the first night they're there, or the second night they're there, is Piper goes to like the supermarket to try and buy food to make Hannah a meal, because she's like, Hannah's come all of this way for me and she really didn't have to, and so I want to cook her a nice meal. And it's from Brendan's point of view, and he's walking around and he's there by himself because he likes going to the supermarket by himself early in the morning because it's his routine. And he just hears like, hey Siri, what's a meal to cook? And what's a meal to cook? And then it's like blah blah. Hey Siri, what is an easy meal to cook? Hey Siri, what's tarragon? And it's so funny, but it's like Piper is still Piper, and that's very early on, but it's showing you that she cares about the people around her. Yeah. And that, you know, she loves her sister and she grows to love lots of other people in the town. she's not doing everything that you would expect a socialite would do. But there's so many instances of that where I'm like, I can't believe you know how to show, not tell.
Yeah, there's so many instances where you're like, this is actually good writing.
Right? So many bits where it's really good writing.
And you're just like, how did you do that when I feel like you don't know how to do that normally? It's really good and it's really fucking funny.
It's really funny.
It's really
The character Piper is so funny.
In the first chapter, oh my god, is it true you begged Adrian not to break up with you in front of Ansel Elgort?
Yeah.
And that's just like her random friend who we only see twice, but you're just like, that's so funny. And then when she goes to jail in chapter 2 and then she makes friends with the woman in the jail.
Yeah. And again, it's such a nice way of showing really nice sides to Piper.
Yeah.
So yeah, really funny bits, really like romantic bits, and really bits that kind of get you giddy, and bits that, like, I'll just tell you now, when we get don't worry, we'll get to the smut, and it's intense, the amount of times that this book where she's like, her female body and his hard male attitude, female, male, he felt so male, she looked so female, just constantly, and I'm like, you've got to stop.
The thing is I'm like, this is not by any means the first book she wrote.
No.
As we know.
No.
It's not the most recent book she wrote. So, but I'm like, what must those beginning ones be like?
I dread to think.
Because I'm like, are they going to be really well written, but the smut is terrible? And has she kind of gone the other way?
And she's
where
like,
I'm like
in this weird middling ground now. Well, you can't say that because the smut in Fangirl Down was ridiculous.
Terrible, but like not badly written.
You take that back. You take that back right now. They're not as repetitive.
That's I think
some of this
that's what I mean.
is like the amount of.
She's using original phrases you've never heard before.
That's true.
In every book.
That's true. Just there are some bits that are so really, really well written, and like so many good like side characters as well. That like feel like real people, and you're like, God. But yeah, there are some bits with Brendan that I love.
There's a bit where he's like, he didn't want to go near her because he definitely didn't want to know what she smelled like.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you horny dog.
Because then there's this scene after she buys all the food, and then she sets the pan on fire and runs out into the street and sets it on fire. And Brendan and Fox are across the road, and he goes over to help her, and he like shouts at her, but out of a way of being like, what the fuck are you doing? Basically like, oh, you're gonna. And that's when Hannah like gets in front of him and is like, don't you shout at my sister. And I was like, this whole scene is just,
it's just really
it's
cute.
It's just so good. It's such a cute scene, and it's such a lovely way of really showing the strength of Hannah and Piper's relationship, and also really good setup of Hannah and Fox all the time. And again, you're like, Hannah and Fox is set up so well in this book,
so well,
and it feels so natural,
so organic,
so organic. And then you've got fucking, and I will try not to do this every point I make. You've got Fangirl Down when it's like, hey, this random man that I've never mentioned before who plays hockey is coming for dinner tonight.
He's my friend.
You should bring your friend.
She's my friend.
She needs a job, right? She likes kids, right?
Does she also need somewhere to live? Yes. And you're like,
great, because she's just moved back from Antarctica. And you're like, what? And it's so painfully obvious. And in this, their storyline works well just in this.
She says, don't yell at her, you fucking bully. That's what she says. Inwardly, he flinched. Bully?
Ignore him, Piper said, dismissing him with a flick of her hand. Ignore him, the lady says, Fox said, amused. What are you, his pretty boy sidekick? Hannah waved off a stunned Fox with a suck of her teeth and refocused her wrath on Brendan. The last thing she needs is another dude making her feel like garbage. Leave her alone. Hannah, it's not worth it. But her sister wasn't finished, and it was my fault. I left the cleaning rag on the counter. Blah, blah, blah. Leave her alone. Brendan was feeling shittier by the second. Leave her alone, the sister had said, and his apology got stuck in his throat, like he was a prize arsehole who went around hurting women's feelings. No, just this one. Why just this one?
Why just this one?
Brendan cleared his throat hard. Piper? The woman in question paused with her hand on the door. Hannah frowned up at him. I said to leave my sister. Listen up, Brendan said to the younger one. I heard what you said. I respect you for saying it. You've got a nice solid backbone for someone from Los Angeles. But I don't follow orders. I give them. He let that sink in.
Slow.
I yelled at her because that's what people do when there's a close call. Over the top of Hannah's head, he met Piper's gaze. I won't do it again. Brendan saying, listen, I understand what you're saying. This is why I did it. And I won't do it again because I recognise it's hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
And you're like, where am I? Where am I?
Not on a Tessa Bailey novel, surely.
Surely I can't be in a Tessa... Surely Tessa Bailey's not come up with this man. That can't be possible. And then he says these two girls were totally out of place in this small fishing town surroundings, like two explosions of colour. I was just like, that's lovely.
That's lovely.
Again, this is just the thing of Tessa Bailey in this book. There are so many bits. I feel like I'm doing a monologue, by the way. I just want to point that out. I'm aware that I'm doing a monologue, but I feel very passionately about this book. And Ellen knows she can interrupt me whenever she likes.
You're just saying, I agree with you.
Okay, that's
You're
fine.
saying what I'm thinking. Just better, more eloquently.
There are so many bits in the first 16 chapters before anything smutty happens, yeah, where they do so many small things that are actually sexy and actually make you go like, ee! That get you really excited for them to get together and to shag, because it's like they're not always like outwardly flirting, but they just do things that are like not platonic always. So like straight after that, to calm Hannah down, Fox goes and like shows her a record store. Cute, by the way. Brendan's like, come on, come to the restaurant, you can have some of my food. And he has the same fish and chips every time he goes there, but he gives it to her.
And he eats the chicken pot pie and he doesn't even like it.
He doesn't like it.
And then she's like, are you just going to keep eating it? And he's like, yeah, well, I said I would. So I'm just going to keep eating it. And actually, I was like, in my opinion, he is written so well as this man who is so dependent on his routines that it like made me like, it like gave me anxiety and like made me upset.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I just feel so like about him. Like you're just like, are you all right? Like, are you going to be okay with this? Like, are you going to go home and be like, oh, I didn't get my fish?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
yeah.
Brendan.
But then it shows how much he really cares for her.
Yeah.
What I like as well is that because of his routines and he's so stuck in them, and because he's a sea captain and stuff, and routine means safety and all of this stuff, he ends up quite a lot of times kind of telling her what to do, but not in like a mean way after this instance, because he is very conscious of being rude to her. But then it becomes just in quite like quite a sexy way. Actually, they called my number right before you run out on the fire. Go in there and eat it. When she blinked, he played back his demand and realised that's exactly what it had been, a demand. If you'd like, he tacked on. And I was like, I can't cope.
Have
you highlighted that?
Go in there and eat it.
I've highlighted if you like.
Horny.
And then, she hummed and slipped past him, her perfume reaching up and apparently doing something to his brain. He followed in her wake without sending the order to his feet. So you're like, he's not fucking in charge. He's like fucking whipped, actually. And then he didn't want any of them to overhear their conversation. It was none of their business. That was the only reason he took the seat next to Piper and tugged her chair a little closer.
It's giving challenges.
Brendan pushed the plate of fish and chips in front of her, then picked up the fork and put it in her hand.
And this is the exact thing that we said, is that I'm like, when we are playing golf, why are you telling me what to do? But in this scenario where he is like, I spend my entire life telling people what to do, so when we're on the high seas, they don't die.
It makes sense.
The thing is, I'm like, you're right. He's not a prick about it. He's not like, I don't ever have to apologise because my wife is dead and therefore I can say and do whatever I want, blah, blah. He's just kind of like, I did this thing to this woman I didn't like how it made me feel, and I did that because I judged her, and now I'm getting to know her more and I'm realising that my preconception of her was completely wrong, and now I'm feeling like actually I want to treat her nicely, but that doesn't stop him from having the certain character traits that he already had previously.
Well, this is what I mean.
He's 3D.
That's the thing, isn't it? Is that they're both so fucking 3D because they both have these traits at the beginning that they still have at the end. They are completely recognisable from the people they were at the beginning.
Yes.
But they have done... Yes.
They
have done like real kind of growth and development to make their relationship work. So, we always say like when they have these arguments in these books, you have an argument you make up and then you're engaged. I don't trust that actually the next time you have an argument that anything will change and make this relationship healthy, But this whole book is just both of them changing and growing, but still kind of staying true to themselves. Again, I'm like, I don't understand. I don't see how this is the same person.
No.
Like, she's just telling him about his day. Me and Hannah walked up to the harbour this morning. There are so many boats named after women. Is there a reason for it? He thought of Piper strutting along his harbour and wondered how many...
harbour.
Yeah. And wondered how many car accidents she'd cause. And again, this is just not Tessa going, he thought she was really hot. You know? She's actually like giving a bit of depth to these thoughts that make it such a more enjoyable read.
The next page. Oh no, a serious expression dawned on her face. Do you think there's a female fisherman hiding in this pie, Brendan? So funny.
And then, straight after that, his bark of laughter made her jump. Hell, it made him jump. Had anyone ever caught him off guard like that? No, he didn't think so. This is such good, he only smiles for her. And then, like, the comments they make to each other as well aren't, like, overly... Like, the flirting...
It's not that flirting where you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, he's talking about a vagina.
Is this harassment?
Yeah.
But then it's not like not sexy. It's not like not flirting and not... It's not innocent. Like, so at the end of this, they exchange numbers. He gives her a number. I'm calling you, so you'll have my number too. Oh, he nodded, the corner of his mouth tugging a little. Kill me, by the way. Right. She cupped a hand around her mouth and whispered, should I be expecting nudes? Jesus Christ, Piper, he grumped, straightening the takeout menus and signalling an end to the discussion. But he hesitated a second before striding for the door. Now that I'm in your phone, does this mean the next time you break into a rooftop pool, I'll be on the mass invite? Brendan winked to let her know he was joking. The thought of this man winking does things to me, because this man who is so like stoic and so grumpy and is laughed out loud for the first time about 2 pages ago, it's like it's
first time ever.
Yeah, it's like she's like bringing him out of his shell, showing that side of himself just to her. And like the thought, like I just think the thought of a man who you know is so serious, but you kind of fancy. And then you could imagine being Piper in that second and seeing him wink and being like, fuck. And
I'm in danger.
Hannah sat up and asked, what the hell is going on there? Slowly, she shook her head. I have no freaking idea.
I was
like,
also that whole bit, she's got a pillow in front of her butt.
Yeah.
Because she's just wearing underwear and he's like,
yeah, and he's dying on the inside. Yeah. And
like that's kind of the thing that's nice about it as well, that he's like, she was just wearing like nice pants, and I'm like, whoa, because I haven't had sex for 8 years, and I'm like, bah!
Yeah.
And it's not just like the first time we did anything she ate my ass.
Yeah.
Although
she does later on, but it's not even like it's build up, because it's not like romance build up. It's like building a foundation more. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it is tension. The tension is great. The back and forth is fantastic. But it's more just actually like the way they get to know each other, the way he helps her and supports her. And then you just get little treats of a line where Hannah says, have some fun with Fox instead. Bet it would be way less complicated. Piper couldn't even remember the guy's face, only that she classified it as attractive. Now Brendan's face, she could recall crow's feet fanning out of the corner of his eyes, the silver flecks dotting the green of his irises, his gigantic weathered hands and the breadth of his shoulders. She shook herself. They'd had a meal together yesterday. Of course she recalled all those things. Can you even remember Adrian's voice? Like, Tessa didn't have to include that. You know, it could have been like, you know, maybe Shag Fox, and Piper be like, no. But then to be like,
no,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But, you know, then just to put in those things, and it's not Piper then being like, no, because actually I'm not going to shag Fox because I love Brendan. It's just a natural, like, I can't really remember anything about him, but I can remember lots about Brendan. And it's really good. She is peak, like, girlhood to me. She loves her lipstick bag. She's not, and all the things she did as a socialite, she's not faking about it. You know, there are elements of it that she realises that weren't fulfilling, but she likes getting dressed up. She likes shopping. She likes makeup. She likes her weird lipstick purse and her hats and all her skincare and all of that stuff, and just having a good time and having a party. None of that changes. None of that's bad. She's not expected to change any of that about herself.
Yeah.
And like, I just really like that about her, that she's just like, she likes what she likes. And she's not like, I'm better than everyone because I like this, blah, blah, blah.
It's a great point.
But she can still be a really good person as well, which I just don't think you see enough.
Well, I also think that, like, again, all the other tests we've been reading, like, the woman is the secondary character.
Yeah.
And it's because these books are aimed at straight women.
Yeah.
So you sort of understand. But, like, you know, it's fucking window shopping. She's just got out of prison. He has to save her.
Yeah.
He has to change her life. Fangirl down. He has to save her because
Literally.
he has to give her money to help her live her dream.
Diabetes, yeah.
And to save her from the diabetes. You don't have anything to identify with. You don't have anything to, as a woman, in my opinion, there's nothing to identify with. There's nothing to, like, keep you there apart from being like, this man's horny.
They're basically like your name, kind of.
Yeah.
You're meant to insert yourself.
Because, yeah, you're supposed to insert yourself, but it doesn't make for a good reading experience for a fucking novel, because you're like, am I not here for a story of two people? And maybe sometimes I imagine it's me, whatever. But, like,
I love having sex on a golf course.
Like, for us, at least, maybe not for everyone else, but for us, I'm like, having good chemistry between the two of them, and the chemistry that is created by two fleshed out real people is just so much better. It makes it better book, and that's evidence in this.
100%. And, like, she was already a lot of this is what we were saying earlier, of that they're still recognizable as the people they were at the beginning as they were at the end, but, like, she doesn't realize that, oh my gosh, I can be a good sister, I can be, you know, she already is those things. There's lots of things that she's not, that she is at the end. Yeah. And she gains a lot of, like, self-esteem, because she learns she doesn't just have to be this party girl. Yeah. But it doesn't mean she doesn't like partying, and it doesn't mean that she was that she was fucking horrible before she did it, and going to Westport made her nice. And he doesn't make her a nice person.
No, and I also don't think that she's not fully like, I want to stop living my LA life just because of him.
No.
She's already kind of realizing that by the time they get there.
Yeah.
Because she's already like, oh, this breakup was kind of crazy, and, like, now I'm in jail and my friend is not coming to get me. No. Like, who's coming to get me? It's my sister.
Yeah.
And yes, she doesn't want to be sent to Westport, like, by the stepdad, but when they get there, it's not like she's like, I'm fucking going home.
Yeah.
Like, they're just kind of like, okay, we better just
make the best of it, I guess. Yeah.
Shouldn't we? Like, which is already a great trait, without her then being like, I got here and I fell in love, and now I'm like, I better stay.
Obviously, because it's a romance book, that they, like, he helps her see that she's, like, enough as she is, basically.
Yeah.
And again, so it's not like you have to change to be enough. Like, she's like, you're enough as she is. So, like, I'm really good at going to parties and taking pictures, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what if that's it? What if that's just it? And you keep witnessing these huge fails of mine, but I can't hide behind drinks and a flirty smile here. It's just me. He couldn't hide his confusion. Just you. And I was like, just you? Just you? Imagine if you, like...
Is this when she's drunk?
Yeah.
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 And he's like, he, like, pulls the car over, and he's like, she's like, why are you getting so upset? And he's like, you have to realise that you are amazing.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh.
They just have a really unique relationship with one another as well, that, like, again, makes this so enjoyable to read, because you don't believe that you could insert yourself or insert anyone else into it.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's a really good point.
That's a really good point.
But, like, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've skipped past the bit already that just before this, he goes away on a fishing trip and is like, I'm like, I want to see her, basically. So he creates an Instagram account and follows her, and they notice that he only follows her. It's a brand new account. He only follows her. And it's such a funny scene again with the boys on the boat.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah.
Great stuff of just, again, real kind of, like, fleshed out characters sort of thing.
Of them being like, no, don't hit that.
Don't do that.
And he's like, can I unfollow? And they're like, no.
That makes it worse. Don't unfollow her. That'll make it worse. And when Piper and Hannah are talking about it, and Hannah's like, rookie move. And Piper's like, I don't know. I don't think he fancies me. And Hannah's like, are you dumb? He just created an Instagram account to follow you and, like,
look at your fucking pictures.
To look at your pictures where you're all, like, basically naked on a beach.
But then he, like, looks at all the pictures and he's kind of like...
My favourite one is the one of Hannah and Piper sitting on a cliff after a hike or something, rather than all, like, the really staged ones.
Yeah, he, like, looks at all the sexy ones of her, like, posing in a bikini, and he's like, yeah, she's fit, but, like... And then he's like, oh, that's a really nice one. They're, like, sisterly.
And then she says, hey, remember the time you were the only one I followed on Instagram? No, he says that to her.
Hey, remember that? Which I was like, Brendan, that's a funny thing to say.
Yeah.
Hey, remember the time I was the only one? You were the only one I followed on Instagram. What were you thinking? I was just hitting buttons, honey.
I was just hitting buttons, honey. And I don't know why, because I don't normally like pet names. I love when he calls her honey in this. I love it.
So what pictures did you look at? A lot of them. Which girl are you? The girl in the pictures or the one sitting next to me? Both, I think. I do think it feels quite genuine, and it feels like the words of a man who has like basically been alone for 7 years, and even before that wasn't even really in love with his wife. It's still sort of that thing a bit where it's like he is obsessed with her. Like, it's still a romance book.
Yeah. Of course, and it is going to be like heightened. It's what they said in Funny Story. You don't always read things for real life experiences, but there are things in this that feel incredibly realistic.
Do you have any idea how much this ugly purse cost? Probably less than I'd pay to have it burned, he drawled. But I love it. He sighed, pushed a hand through his hair. I guess I wouldn't burn it then.
That's such a good line.
It's such a good line, but so simple.
So simple.
Like quite basic stuff, but you're like, lovely.
Yeah. No, bitch. My God. This is what is like one of my favourite lines of the whole book. I don't know why. Yeah, so she's saying, I feel better after being upset. Brendan, I think this means we're friends. They arrived at her door and he waited for her to unlock it. Piper, I don't just go putting my arms around girls. She paused in the doorway, looked back. What does that mean? He gave in to just a touch of temptation, tucking a wind-tangled strand of hair behind her ear. Soft. It means I'll be around.
Soft.
It means I'll be around. Knowing if he stood there a second longer, he tried to taste her mouth. Classic. Brendan backed away. Just say kiss her. Just say kiss her.
He's going to taste her mouth.
Brendan backed away a couple of steps, then turned. The image of her stunned and definitely wary expression burned into his mind the whole way back. But when her going, Brendan, I think this means we're friends. I don't just put my arm around any old girl, Piper. What does that mean? It means I'll be around.
Yeah, she's like, I think we're friends, and he's like, no.
Because
think again, my friend.
Because it's so fucking obvious to the reader, to Brendan, to Piper, that she's going, oh, we're just going to be friends, are we? Because, I don't want anything. I can't.
We're going to be friends. If you don't just want to fuck, then we are friends. We're friends.
And
aren't we?
He's like, I'll be around.
It's a really, actually, I do like that trope. And trope it is of like, she's like, we're friends, and he's like, no. And you'll find out eventually. You'll figure it out that we're not friends. And she does.
And she does.
And he eats her out.
But what you would give to be in that moment, that feeling of a guy, like someone you're interested in saying something like that to you.
But I'm like,
that level of like, I'm interested.
I love so much though that at that point I am no longer able to be coy. My problem is I'm like, I'm not Piper, because I am not the person who is like, we're just friends, right? If someone says that to me, I'm like, come in. Up you come. Come on, onto the bunk bed. Let's go. It's time. We're in love now. We're in love. You've said that to me. Now we're in love. Like, I am not in denial. I am never in denial. I am like...
No. Yeah. You
diving into love.
You would not... Flipping back to you. You would not... You would not live in that moment, actually. If someone said that to me, I would just fucking kiss them, like, straight away. He's like, I walk away, her wary expression burned into my mind. I would be like, get back.
Chasing the car.
I'm climbing him like a tree. So then from that point out, we know we're things are going down.
We know where we're going.
Piper and Hannah are redoing the bar up, and Brendan's coming like every day. When he's not on the fishing trip, he's coming every day to help them do what he can. There's a bit where they are like, they have ripped all this wood off, all this bit, and they're like really trying together to heave the bag up and lift it out. And they're like, it's just too heavy. We can't do it.
He comes in for something else, right? And whilst they're talking, he very casually just basically like picks it up.
Yeah.
Puts it over his shoulder, takes
it
it
out.
And they're both like,
yeah. And I love that in books as well, when, Hannah is also like hot.
She's like,
did you see that?
He's really fit.
Did you see that?
And Piper's like, yeah, I fucking know, actually. The bit where she's like, did you see that? You have to marry him now.
Yeah,
and she's like, I know.
When they're like mouthing to each other, like, what the fuck am I meant to do? I've got to marry him. But yeah, he brings them like donuts and stuff, and basically she notices that he's now taken off his wedding ring.
Because there's a very meaningful scene where he's alone at home.
It's just after the I'll be around,
and he goes home and he takes the wedding ring off, and you are like, and actually,
it's done very well.
It's really good. Yeah. I mean, we need to shut the fuck up about how good this is, but like, he's not like, yeah, baby, suck my wedding ring off my finger and spit it into the fucking gutter or whatever. I hate my dead wife. Like,
which I wouldn't put it past Tessa to do.
He's very much like, I'm at home alone. I'm thinking about my future. He's not just thinking about, I'm in love with Piper.
He's like twirling the ring around his finger, really like thinking about it. And I'm going to find it actually because it's so, the last line of it is so
thinking
lovely.
About how keeping his wedding ring on, even though his wife has been dead for 7 years, is actually negatively affecting his life because it's dragging him into the past when he finally feels like there could be a reason to live in the present and think about the future. By the way, I just slayed myself.
Yeah, I heard. You've given me chills. And I would just like to say...
She's got goosebumps, ladies and gentlemen.
I've literally got goosebumps. And I would like to say that, Tessa, if you're listening, this scene, the build-up of this book and the romance, I love. But this is why I will always love you and why you will always be my monarch. Oh.
Don't cry. She's tearing.
The tide had changed. A boat pun. The tide had changed and he wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. He wouldn't stay so firmly rooted in his practices and routines that a good thing would come along and slip away. As he slid off the gold band and tucked it into a safe place in his sock drawer, he said goodbye and apologised a final time. Then he turned off the light. Just lovely.
Really
and
nice.
That's after like a page of thinking about all the things he could, remember, or his life over the past 7 years, his life with his wife, all of that. And just he said goodbye and apologised a final time. Then he turned off a light. Because all he'd been doing, he's been apologising for 7 years about being a bad husband. And he was just not super present, really, but neither was she. Not to speak ill of the dead, but just that.
Desiree.
Just that. And then, ladies and gentlemen, he'd taken off his wedding ring after 7 years. Piper's gaze travelled to Brendan.
Such a good moment.
He knew she'd seen, and there was some silent communication happening between them, but she didn't understand the language. That's classic Tessa.
Oh,
there's a bit later.
It was girl language.
It was girl language.
And
like, it's English. It's English. But she didn't understand the language, had never spoken it or been around a man who could convey so much without saying a single word.
This whole book, he's conveying so much without saying a single thing. Just like Tessa is. Yeah. Sorry, I'm like...
Yeah.
But I'm like, she called herself out.
Yeah, she has. Well,
she was correct.
She couldn't translate what passed between them, or maybe she just wasn't ready to decipher his meaning. Slay. A drop of sweat slid down her spine. She's been doing heavy lifting, guys. Okay, it's normal.
Also, that's a classic Tessa, by the way.
Yeah.
The drop of sweat on the spine.
And she's in yoga pants, and I was like, here we go. And she could suddenly hear her own shallow breaths. No one had ever looked her in the eye this long. It was like he could read her mind, knew everything about her, and liked it all, and wanted some of it for himself. This donut is incredible, Hannah said, her words muffled by the dough in her mouth. There's caramel in the grey glaze. Pipes, you have to try... She cut herself off, her gaze bouncing back and forth between Piper and Brendan. What's happening here? And I've just... Classic. Absolutely just peak Netflix rom-com. Nothing, Piper said in a high-pitched voice. I don't know. Brendan, do you know if it's possible to paint concrete? Her flustered state seemed to amuse him. It is. Oh, good.
Like, imagine he comes in. Hannah takes the donut. Hannah's like eating the donut. Hannah's like chatting away, being like blah blah blah. They are just stood staring at each other. She looks at the empty finger. She looks up at him. She looks at the empty finger. She looks up at him. He's like, they just keep ite contact. She's like, fuck. Hannah's like, what's going on? She's like, oh well, I don't know. And like the tension breaks.
Yeah. But the fact that
it's perfection.
It is. After that, it's full. Here we go. It's go time, baby.
They're gonna kiss in a minute.
They're all helping.
He's doing the pergola. When he's at the door, he leaves her, and then he comes back and he's taking his wedding ring off, and she's suddenly like, oh, fuck. And then she's like, right, okay, time to click into gear, basically. Maybe I am going to do this. And that's when she kind of starts being like, but we're just going to fuck, aren't we? And he's like, no.
But also...
You can think what you want.
Yeah. We're finally at the first kiss. where
They're underneath the pergola.
that he's just built for their bar. He asks her to dinner and she says, I'll absolutely have dinner. I'd love to. But, well, I like you, Brendan, but I just want to be upfront and say, that I'm going back to LA, blah, 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 blah. So we both know this dinner is casual, friendly even, right? We both know that. She laughed nervously, tucking some hair into her ponytail. I'm just stating the obvious. Sure. Piper pursed her lips. So we're agreeing on that. A beat passed as he considered her. Beat. War flashbacks. Not beat. Not my sleep paralysis demon beat. I hate that man. If I ever see that man, if I ever see that fictional man, I've ruined the vibe, haven't I? Beat. Just the way you were like, I cannot express to you how much I hate him. Anyway, this is Brendan. Look, we both know I like
Anyway, guys, this is not Beat. This is Brendan.
I'll pick you up tomorrow night, 7. But Brendan, 1 second he was holding the toolbox. The next it was on the ground and he was turning. Piper's momentum brought her up against Brendan's body hard. And his boat captain forearm.
Boat captain. Famous.
Guys, I can't be doing this. I actually don't want to read anymore because I'm like, I can't ruin this for his boat captain forearm is fucking stupid. His boat captain forearm. His boat captain forearm wrapped around her lower back, lifting her just enough that her toes brushed the concrete. And then
ick for me.
Yeah. And
like
she's
swinging.
like, yeah. And then he bowed her backwards on that steel arm. We'll just brush past that. Stamping his mouth down onto hers in an epic kiss. It was like a movie poster with the male lead. That's the first time we hear male, and it makes sense in this instance, actually. Curling his big hunky body over the swooning feminine lady. And taking his fill. And oh God, he just devoured her.
I think I'm fine with devouring.
I regret reading this out loud. His lips pushed hers wide, his working man's finger.
God, I don't remember that.
If we're doing Brendan's arm anatomy, so we've got the steel top of the arm, the steel bicep, let's say, steel arm, boatman forearm.
No, it's not.
What was it?
Boatsman.
Boat captain forearm. Boatsman. So steel, and then boat captain forearm, and now working man's fingers. His working man's fingers ploughed into her hair, and his tongue snuck in deep, invading and setting off flares in her erogenous zones. Erogenous zones is... And he moaned. And then you're back in it because you're like, yeah, he's moaning.
That's fit.
This huge, gritty badass of a man moaned like he'd never tasted anything so good in all of his life. And he needed to get more.
What could you possibly say?
Just one word on the next page.
And again, we say this all the time, because you're obsessed with him and her and them together, like... Yeah, the sea captain's forearm is not great. Or the boat captain's forearm, is not great. Nor is the working man's fingers.
Working man's fingers is ridiculous.
I just imagine like tools on the end of his hand.
It's like a
Swiss Army knife. Yeah.
His thumb is a spork. Crazy. Corkscrew, a spork, a little knife, some nail clippers.
I can't. Not you being like, his thumb is a spork. Crazy. That's really funny.
It's a comedy podcast.
But you don't mind it because then she's like, yeah, he like moaned like he'd never tasted anything like it in his life. And you're like, oh God, what if that was me? Yeah. And I know we just said you're not imagining if it was you, but then you are imagining that it's you because you're imagining he's like, basically, whatever it is, working your mouth or whatever.
Devouring.
He's going to taste her mouth. So they have their kiss.
Then they have their date.
Now they're having their dinner.
And she is trying to seduce him because it's like, well, if we're not going to be just friends, then we're just going to fuck.
She's very much like, there's no way that we can like date. There's no way we have feelings for each other. So I'm very much going to try and keep it like friends with benefits.
She says the boat captain didn't appear to be easily seduced. When she picked this dress out, she hadn't even expected them to make it through the front door. Just shagging on the ground, are they? But here they were, sitting in his charmingly masculine dining room.
Yeah.
Preparing to eat food he made himself. And he'd bought her champagne. Because he bought her champagne.
The champagne, like, made me sad. Like,
why?
You know, when she goes into when he's on the boat, and then she goes into the fridge and there's a second bottle of champagne in there, and she's like, oh, I was like, God, it just makes me just like really like emotional for him. Like I'm really just like, Brendan,
like he's trying really hard
buying champagne, but he never normally buys champagne. That's completely out of his routine.
Oh bitch, I fucking and this again is your like Piper behaves like a crazy person at points in the smut, because this is what she's used to doing, is she's used to kind of like not selling herself, you know what I mean? Like,
Is this the bit where she pulls her dress down?
Yeah.
Crazy,
but you're like you know why she's doing it, because it's like she's trying to use sex as like a defense.
But like
mechanism.
They haven't at this point, have they not even kissed during this scenario?
But she's trying to be like, no, we're just fucking.
So she like gets in between. They're literally eating their like nice fish dinner that he's made. She goes round the table, stands in between his legs, basically I'm always like, she's sat on his plate. Yeah. First of all, she's sat on his plate, and then takes her dress. She's wearing like a bandeau dress. Takes it, just pulls it down so her tits are out. And I'm just like, if he actually didn't like you, that would be crazy.
Okay, but we can't be doing this, because at least in this one, we say this in all of them, where we're like, if someone call HR. Because if they don't like each other, because all that's happened is like one thing of where she's had a panic attack, and then fucking Aiden is carrying her in the lift and is like,
he's got his cordless
don't let the bow tie fool you. I can be downright rough if you need it. And I'm like, she's just had a panic attack, and that's all that's happened in this. Your entire relationship is one interview and one panic attack.
I know, and I understand that completely.
I won't take this point in this episode actually,
but like if I imagine it as myself, which I'm not supposed to be doing, as we know, but if I was,
not inserting ourselves. Brendan's going to be doing something.
Someone's got to insert something somewhere. I couldn't imagine doing that, because I think I would just be like, what if he's like, put him away?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, true. It's but Piper's got so much confidence. Piper knows she's fit, so like,
yeah, you're right.
No one's saying that. Before she does this, just to back up my girl Pipe.
Yeah, sorry.
Could she have Brendan tonight and still keep her eye on on that reality of going back to LA? Of course she could. Ignoring the notch in her throat, Piper pushed back from the table and stood, champagne in hand. She rounded the piece of furniture slowly, gratified when his throat worked in a heavy swallow. His eyes and chin were stubborn though. Classic stubborn chin. Piper slipped between Brendan and the table, scooting it back a little so she could stand comfortably in the V of his thighs.
So she's pushing a whole table.
Yeah, and I'm imagining like a huge wooden, like, table.
It's masculine. It's comfortably masculine.
It's comfortably masculine, guys. And you all know what a masculine dining room table looks like. So, Piper, he said hoarsely, this isn't why I invited you to dinner. And I was like, slay at that, first of all. That's
nice thing to say. It's a nice thing to say.
And then, guys, it is all downhill from here. She peels down the green velvet bodice of her dress, saying maybe it's not the only reason, but it's one of them, isn't it? She's left her bare breasts mere inches from his mouth. Crazy. From his mouth. like saying from his face I would get, but from his mouth, like, that's just a bizarre, because I'm like, surely he would be looking up at her. So where, like, what's, like, inches from his mouth makes me feel ill.
Saying from his mouth is crazy. Well, it's because she's like, he's gonna suck on them.
Yeah,
but also you're just you're right. Not just from his face, but from his mouth.
And then this is where, listen,
here we go.
You just have to accept, okay, that the man in these scenes, the things that he says in some of them, I'll tell you which bits are Brendan and which bits are a random man. I do not know.
Which bits are beat.
Not beat. Brendan opened his eyes. So his eyes are closed and her nipples are mere inches from his mouth. What? Okay. Why are his eyes closed?
Why are his eyes closed? So yeah, he closed his eyes.
She's got a dress on. Bloop. She opens his eyes. Oh, boobs. and then again, I've been putting off saying this. Okay. Okay, good. I was like,
scared.
What are you going to say? Are you going to call me a whore again?
No, I think that's fair. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Also, the visibly reluctant to leave her, I think, is really nice.
Basically, then after that, they're just having a nice, good time together. They're having a fun time.
Yeah.
He's going off to sea. He comes back. He helps her. There's a storm. She stays at his house. There's an accident on the boat. Someone's injured. She thinks it's him. She goes to the hospital. They have sex for the first time in a hospital.
Yeah, crazy.
Which I'm like, again, classic Tessa. They're always shagging in weird places for the first time. And that's just, they shag up against a wall. It's a great time. It's classic. Oh, I don't have a condom. I've got the implant. I'm clean too. Yes, Brendan, we know you've not had sex in 7 years, okay? But then after that, so they're kind of like basically together. He picks her up from a bar when she's drunk with her gran, who we've not mentioned, but her dad's mum is there, who she meets and connects with, and it's really, really sweet.
Yeah.
He picks her up, and again, she's being like, we're just fucking. Like, I don't know what anyone's said. Like, what he's saying, like, we're just fucking. They get into a bit of a fight. She's chatting shit about herself again and basically saying, oh, you know, I don't deserve you. She says, I'm just momentary. Not to me. He wanted to shake her, kiss her. Not to me. Can we just talk about this tomorrow? Like you said, Brendan slammed the car back into drive. Oh, we're going to talk about it. Good. Maybe I'll put together some talking points. Me too, baby. And it's like, I said, this is the first time Tessa Bailey's ever written a couple that communicate. Tomorrow sounds like it's going to be a super sexy good time. We'll get to that after, before, and after. And I'm like, this is just like a good fun time. And like, I trust that they're going to deal with their problems. So then he takes her out on the boat the next day, partly to show her how kind of more safe it is than she thinks, because obviously her dad died at sea. So she's worried she's going to die at sea. And that's kind of the reason, some of the reason she won't commit. She's like, I can't lose you, blah, blah, blah. So he takes her out to sea. A good reason. And they have a very nice time. And there's a really nice bit. They've done a lot of talking. And then it was quiet, just the lapping of water against the side of the boat and the gentle groans of the ship compensating for the rise and fall of the ocean. They sat in the captain's chair with her head leaned back against his shoulder, his fingers trailing up and down her bare arm. And I was like, that's lovely, actually. That's really, really nice.
Yeah.
I love that they're having a good time. And then, guys, would it be a book about fishing and sailing if there wasn't shagging on a boat?
This bed isn't strong enough to survive what I'm going to do to you.
I'm like, get better beds on your boat, man.
Trying to find the bottom of the pleasure well.
Pleasure well.
Pleasure well.
Pleasure well.
Take me to the pleasure well. Until she didn't realise the bottom of the well wasn't physical.
And I was like, I get it. Get it, Tess.
And I was like,
remember how I said show, don't tell? Goes out the window.
You're telling me they're not physically at the bottom of a well?
What?
That's crazy.
I thought they sailed into a well. She needed their emotional connection to calm herself down. Needed him, his heart, his Brendanness.
You're so right that the moment she gets into the smut, she's like, this is happening. By the way, also this.
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
I've done a metaphor, but I don't think you're going to understand it.
That's
so
why
let me
I'm going to say,
explain it to you.
once they start shagging, it is still really good. There's just some descriptions like, they surged together and sank into a long, wet sampling of lips and tongues. Their breath shuddering out between.
Sorry, I was covering it. I was like, stop reading.
I'm like, there's way too many words in that description of a kiss, first of all. I'm just going to read out again.
Exploration of... Say again.
She cut off his miserable groan by leaning over, tugging his beard until he met her halfway and kissing him, lightly at first, and then they surged together and sank into a long, wet sampling of lips and tongues. Their breath shuddering out between them. Long, wet sampling of lips and tongues. No one wants a kiss to be dry, okay? No one wants that. No one thinks that if you don't put the word into it. But I don't want you to describe a kiss to me in the written word.
Long, wet sampling.
As wet. I'm like, it's disgusting. And there's a bit where he takes her shopping for jeans, and I was...
Iconic. You remember that. Once you read that, you remember that
that's
forever.
burnt into your brain.
Yeah, the shopping for jeans.
But there is a bit then when he goes in to the changing room with her, and like steps her into the jeans.
I'm gonna find it, hold on. He started to open the waistband so she could step into them, but the little triangle of her panties absorbed his attention when he remembered she'd gotten waxed that very morning. Now, I saw a TikTok about the fact that if you have just been waxed, you are not supposed to fuck for like 48 hours. Bear this in mind. He'd never given a thought to a woman's ... landscaping before, but ever since the first time he'd eaten pie. You know, she panted through the curtain. Shopping is more about the journey than the destination. He gestured to the sales girl. She'll take them all.
Slay. I'm like, but you don't need like 20 pairs of jeans.
And also, you didn't need to grip her pussy and then lift her up by it. That ain't right.
And then they have a tiny like argument about her potentially going back to LA and like, no, she doesn't have good friends there, blah, blah, blah. And so then they do go upstairs, and this is when he just goes straight to the arsehole. And again, really good like communication up until this point where they're having a fight, and he's like, enough, don't talk to me like a child, you're acting like one, you're the one. Christ, if you tell me I'm the one who wanted a high maintenance girlfriend, you're gonna piss me off, Piper. I want you, however you are, whatever you are, I want you, blah 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 blah. So they're really good. They have a good fight again where they communicate. He says to her, how can you say that, like that's it, that you're it? How can you say that that's it when it's the best thing that's ever happened to me? And imagine, because she says she loves him. Sorry, that was in response to him saying that she loves him.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, we love each other, Piper, blah, blah, blah. He slapped the room key over the sensor and kicked the door open. His sole mission in life to give this woman an orgasm. And then they say they love each other, and then they're like, wow, love made this sex so much better. It's almost like we were making love. But then also really nice after they finish. I've never said that to anyone before. It didn't feel like I always thought it would. How did you think it would feel? She thought about it, getting it over with, like ripping off a band-aid. And how did it feel instead? The reverse, like putting a bandage on and wrapping it tight. And I'm like, that's lovely. That's absolutely
really
lovely.
nice.
That's the top of page 321. Top of page 320. I want to turn you fucking limp. Her blue eyes went blind. He rocked into her hot channel.
Isn't like this is the same woman who just wrote he rocked into her hot channel, and then she's like,
the reverse.
like putting a bandage on. And at the end of this chapter is like possibly some of the worst stuff, like the foreshadowing.
Oh my god.
But if Brendan had learned one thing as a captain, it was this. Just when it seemed like a storm was beginning to break and daylight spread across the calm waters, that's when the biggest wave hit. And forgetting that lesson could very well cost him everything.
And guess what,
and
guys?
I was
We've
just
got
like,
50 pages
why
left.
did you need to tell me that? You didn't. You can just be like, and it's the next page and something else is happening. You don't have to be like,
something's
almost
coming.
like breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Of being like,
Yeah.
just when he thought.
He basically gets sick of not knowing, is she going back to LA? Is she coming back? Blah, blah, blah. They have a fight, and she's like, I'm going to be the strong one for once, because it's the first time where, you know, he gets upset and he says things, you know, erratic or whatever, whereas normally, and she's like, I'm going to be the strong one, blah, blah, blah. I will see you at the dock tomorrow morning and see you off. And if I'm not there, you know, I guess that means I'm gone back to LA or whatever. She's not at the dock the next morning because the old man that she helps walk around, Abe, who's lovely and a lovely part of the story, has a fall, so she has to help him. So she's like a little bit late. She feels really bad, can't contact him for 3 days. In those 3 days, she's meant to be launching the bar. No one turns up on time because there was something wrong with the ship coming back, and no one told Hannah and Piper. So they were just stood there thinking, oh my gosh, no one's turned up to our bar. And Mick, who is Desiree, the dead wife's dad, comes and basically like digs out Piper and is like, you know, it's not for everyone, this life. And
yeah, don't think that you'll like belong here, because like, you won't,
don't belong
basically.
here. You're not like my daughter. And she gets really upset, and Hannah gets upset seeing her upset. And it's like, Piper, go back to LA, like just to have fun. Like Hannah's like, I just want to see you have fun. Like this isn't not right. Piper flies back to LA. Brendan and the boys get back really late. The bar is packed. Hannah's there by herself, like, fuck, I guys are fucked up. Brendan goes to the party that it's like a welcome back party for Piper. Sees her across the room. It's very dramatic, but it's very nice of Piper. They like run to each other like, I'm sorry, I can't, you know. And she says, Westport is my home, not just because of you. And I'm like, thanks for the clarification, Tess, actually. Sometimes we need that. Yeah, they're back together. They go back to Westport.
And they're engaged at the end?
I don't think so.
Engaged
and the
in the
ending's
epilogue?
quite nice. No, the ending's quite nice as well. They're engaged in Hook, Line and Sinker. But the epilogue's quite nice, where it's like...
Are they not fucking in the epilogue?
No. You don't even see Brendan in the epilogue. Because it's like Piper's kind of life in Westport. She's talking about learning to love herself just as she was, frivolous and silly on occasion, determined and stubborn on others. When she was mad, she raged. When she was sad, she cried. And when she was happy, like she was in that moment, she threw her arms open and ran right towards the main source, letting him sweep her away. And I was like, that's lovely. It's a lovely ending. I'm like, I can't believe they're not getting married on the boat. Like, that's what you assume from her. They find the Fleetwood Mac record that Fox has bought for Hannah, and then that sets up book 2. Yeah. It's just very
Slow.
wholesome, and it's not rushed
It
in
is.
the end, and it's just a lovely time.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I'm glad we spoke for ages about all the good stuff at the beginning, because I want you to believe that the the weird shit in the smut is completely worth it for all the good shit.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a giddy, like, read, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's so, like, like, you just love them both so much that it makes, you know, Velvet Helmet bearable.
It's kind of okay.
I'm so glad I reread it.
Yeah.
I annotated it to fuck.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to read Hook, Line and Sinker again.
I stand behind it. Although, yeah, some of the smut is fucking crazy. When you read it in context, you're sort of fine with it.
Yeah.
And everything else makes up for it because the
Yeah.
smut is quite a small percentage.
Smut is actually, a very small percentage of it. There's things we haven't covered in this.
Loads of stuff.
Loads of stuff about her. The things, their, like, reconnection with their dad.
Yeah.
There's so much about them rebuilding the bar and, like, learning so much about that and, like, life skills that they both gained, but particularly Piper.
Yeah.
And, her relationships with the other townspeople.
Yeah.
And they're all really fleshed out. They
Yeah.
feel really real. And it's, like, one I will reread again at some point in my life, for sure.
Yeah.
So would definitely recommend it if you can deal with things like Salty Slit and Meaty Underside.
Oh,
Sometimes you just have to. Next time, we're going to be doing our quarter 2 wrap up.
Yeah.
Talking about everything we've read between April and June.
Although I'm like, not that much stuff.
No, not loads.
You've read like 4 books.
Shut the fuck up. I read loads in April. Yeah, we'll see you for that. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow us on shit. Email us.
Yeah. Please.
Talk to us. We like you. We love you. I don't know why I said like.
I only like you as a friend. Thanks so much
Guys,
for
listen,
listening.
I only like you as a friend, just like Piper and Brendan. We are just friends.
Okay, bye.
Bye.